It's 3 a.m. and you're awake again, not because anything is wrong exactly, but because your brain won't stop running. You're exhausted, but sleep won't come. You've been productive, technically. You've kept up, but something underneath has quietly gone empty, and you can't explain it to anyone, including yourself. 1850 years before you, a man sat in a military tent on the banks of the Danube River and wrote almost the exact same thing. His name was Marcus Aurelius. He was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful person alive, and he was burning out. What he wrote next is the part nobody talks about. Here's what's going to surprise you by the end of this video. Marcus's solution to burnout had nothing to do with rest, vacation, or slowing down. It was stranger than that, more specific than that. And there's a reason modern neuroscience is quietly catching up to what he figured out alone in a tent in 175 AD. Stay with this, because in about 10 minutes, you're going to have a 3-question tool that you can run through tonight, pulled directly from the passages Marcus wrote during the worst stretch of his life. Not paraphrased, not modernized into a poster quote. The actual logic he used. The year is 170 AD. Marcus Aurelius is 50 years old. For 4 years, he has been personally commanding Rome's northern legions against the Marcomanni and Quadi tribes along the Danube, a frontier of ice, disease, and relentless attrition. This is not a campaign he chose. It is one he cannot leave. The Antonine Plague has already killed up to 10 million people across the empire. His co-emperor and closest companion, Lucius Verus, died of it in 169. His generals are depleted. The supply lines are stretched. And Marcus, the philosopher who spent his 20s studying Epictetus and dreaming of quiet contemplation, is spending his 50s standing over battlefield maps in the mud. Somewhere in this period, historians believe between 170 and 175 AD, Marcus writes Book 5 of his Meditations. The very first entry begins, "In the morning when you rise unwillingly, let this thought be present. I am rising to the work of a human being." It sounds motivational. It isn't. Read it again. He said unwillingly. The emperor of Rome was writing private notes to himself about not wanting to get out of bed. That's not a metaphor. That's a man documenting his own exhaustion in real time, and then in the same breath working out loud on the page how to keep going anyway. The Meditations are not a philosophy textbook. They are a burnout journal. In Book 6, Entry 7, he writes, "Do not indulge in such thoughts as, 'I shall live unhurt and quiet.' Look at those who were once full of passionate desires and then ask yourself, where are they now?" This is a man taking stock, auditing himself, trying to find what is real and what is just noise in his own mind. But here is the passage that changes everything. Book 5, Entry 8. Marcus lists, one by one, the functions he is supposed to perform: emperor, general, philosopher, husband, father, and then writes, "Confine yourself to the present, not the day, not the week, the present moment, stripped down to one function at a time." He had discovered something. What Marcus was grappling with has a name in Stoic philosophy. It is the fragmentation of attention. When you are responsible for everything, you are mentally present for nothing. Every role calls on you simultaneously, and the mind begins to split. Roman Stoics, especially Marcus's teacher Epictetus, had a specific practice designed to counter exactly this. It was called Prosoche. In Greek, Prosoche. It translates literally as attention toward oneself, but not introspection in the modern therapeutic sense. Not self-criticism, not journaling your feelings. Prosoche meant a disciplined, almost clinical act of watching your own inner state the way a doctor watches a patient's breathing. Calm, precise, without judgment, without alarm. Here's where it gets psychologically interesting, and this is what I want you to hold on to for the next few minutes. The Stoics believed that most suffering comes not from hard circumstances, but from misidentifying what those circumstances are actually doing to you. Marcus wasn't burned out because the war was hard. He was burned out because he kept confusing his exhaustion with failure. In Book 8, Entry 7, Marcus writes one of the most clinical sentences in the Meditations. What is it in itself? What is its nature? He's not asking about the war, he's asking about his own state of mind. He is performing prosoche, taking a hard, specific look at what is actually happening inside before deciding what to do about it. Modern psychology has a term for what Marcus was doing. It's called metacognitive awareness, the ability to observe your own thoughts from a slight distance, rather than being pulled along by them. In clinical burnout research, this specific skill, not rest, not vacation, but precise self-observation, is consistently identified as the first necessary step in recovery. Marcus didn't have the term. He had the practice. Here's what makes Prosoche different from what most of us do when we're exhausted. When we burn out, we typically do one of two things. We push harder and ignore the signal, or we collapse and feel guilty about collapsing. Marcus did neither. He stopped, named the state precisely, and then asked a different question. Not how do I fix this, but what is this actually made of? In the meditations, he repeatedly distinguishes between three sources of depletion: physical exhaustion, which is the body's honest signal; imaginative exhaustion, which is the mind catastrophizing about futures that haven't happened; and what he calls borrowed trouble, carrying the weight of things outside your control as if they were inside it. Three different problems, three different responses. This is a crucial distinction. Most of us treat all exhaustion as one thing and try to solve it with one tool: sleep, a weekend off, a holiday. But Marcus, on the Danube with no vacation possible, had to get more precise. He couldn't leave, so he had to understand exactly what kind of tired he was, because each kind had a different remedy. Physical exhaustion responds to rest. Imaginative exhaustion, the anxiety dread loop that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. imagining worst cases, responds to something Marcus called returning to the present object. He writes in Book 8, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it with the same weapons of reason that today arm you against the present." The antidote is not optimism. It is restriction of attention to what is actually in front of you. And borrowed trouble, carrying the weight of what others think, what might happen, what you cannot control, that responds to something Marcus called returning to your own hegemonikon. Hegemonikon, iegemonikon, literally, the ruling faculty, your own capacity for judgment. The reminder that your inner state is the only territory you actually govern. In 175 AD, a revolt broke out in the Eastern Empire under a general named Avidius Cassius. Marcus had to pivot from the Danube War, unfinished, to deal with a political crisis. Then Cassius was assassinated before Marcus even arrived. The crisis resolved itself, absurdly. Marcus wrote in his journal that night that he had spent days in anticipatory dread of a problem that dissolved on its own. He named that as borrowed trouble and let it go. That is a real historical moment. The most powerful man in the world, writing privately about wasted mental energy. The lesson is not, don't worry. The lesson is, if you're going to carry something, know what you're carrying. Identify it first. Most of us never do. We carry everything as one undifferentiated weight and wonder why we can't move. Here's why this matters tonight, in your life, right now. Not as philosophy, as a practical problem you are probably living. Because what Marcus described, the hollow exhaustion, the inability to rest even when you stop working, the sense that something essential has gone quiet, that is not a modern epidemic. That is a human pattern. And he left us the diagnostic tool. Consider two modern scenarios. First, a project manager at a tech company. She is not overworked by hours. Her calendar is actually lighter this month. But she is exhausted in a way she can't explain. She sleeps 8 hours and wakes up tired. She takes a Saturday off and feels guilty the whole time. Rest is not helping because this is not physical exhaustion. This is imaginative exhaustion. Her mind running threat simulations on a loop. Second scenario, a man in his late 30s who has just gotten a promotion he worked toward for 4 years. He achieved the thing, and he feels nothing, or worse, quietly terrible. He can't tell his wife or his friends because what kind of person feels bad about success? This is borrowed trouble in a specific form. He has been carrying other people's definitions of what this moment should feel like, and now they don't match his actual experience. Marcus would not tell either of these people to practice gratitude or take a break. He would tell them to perform Prosoche first. Stop. Look directly at the state you are in. Name it precisely, and then ask, is this mine or did I borrow it? Is this real or is it a projection? Is this about now or about a future that hasn't arrived yet? Here is the step-by-step technique. Marcus's weekly burnout audit, built from the meditations. 3 questions. You can run this on Sunday evening or any night when something feels off. It takes less than 10 minutes. You need only a piece of paper or a notes app. No special knowledge required, just honest answers. Question 1. What is this actually made of? Write down what you are exhausted by. Not the events, but the specific inner experience. Is it your body that needs sleep? Is it your imagination running catastrophe loops? Or is it weight you picked up from someone else's expectations, someone else's emergency, someone else's measure of what your life should look like right now? Be specific. Marcus was always specific. Question 2. What is inside my control right now, and what am I treating as if it were? Marcus called this the dichotomy of control, borrowed directly from Epictetus. Draw a line. On one side, your own choices, your own attention, your own next action. On the other, everything else. Everything in the second column you are allowed to put down. Not abandon, put down. There is a difference. Question 3. What is the one present object? Not your week, not your year, not the project. What is the single next action that is actually in front of you? The one thing that, if done, would constitute a real human day. Marcus returns to this again and again in the meditations. Strip everything down to the present object. Do that one thing well. The rest will wait, or it won't, and that answer will clarify itself without you. This is not a productivity system. Marcus would have resisted that framing immediately. This is a diagnostic, a way of looking honestly at what is happening in you before you decide what to do about it. The action comes second. The seeing comes first. And most of us, under pressure, behind on things, carrying weight we didn't choose, skip the seeing entirely and go straight to managing. Marcus Aurelius died in 180 AD, still on the Danube campaign. He never saw Rome again after a certain point. He never got the quiet life he had hoped for. The meditations end mid-thought in Book 12. Scholars believe he simply ran out of time. But the final passages are not dark. They are almost serene, because by the end, he had stopped fighting his circumstances and started seeing them clearly. That is a different kind of relief. The surprise, the thing I promised you at the start, is this. Marcus's solution to burnout was not to recover from his life. It was to see his life accurately, one present moment at a time, and to stop adding imaginary weight to real difficulty. The exhaustion didn't fully go away, but the borrowed suffering did. And it turns out, for most of us, that is the larger portion of what we are carrying. Tonight, before you sleep, or if you're watching this at 3 a.m. because sleep won't come, take out something to write on. Ask the 3 questions. What is this actually made of? What am I controlling versus carrying? What is the one present object? You don't need to fix anything. You just need to see it clearly. Marcus figured that out in a military tent in 175 AD. It works the same in your living room tonight. If this reached something in you, there's a video next that goes deeper into Book 2 of the Meditations, specifically what Marcus wrote the morning after his worst recorded day as emperor. It's a different kind of stoicism than the motivational quotes you've seen. It's harder and more honest, and I think you'll find it useful. It's linked above. See you there.